Good morning, everyone. We will begin the program shortly, so may we kindly invite all of the delegates to please find your seats. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, may we request Dr. Wijarn Simachaya, Ms. Marlene Nilsson, and Ms. Linyan to please join us at the head table. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Distinguished delegates, experts, colleagues, friends, and members, the youth climate ambassadors from Save the Children. Sawadee Kap to all of you. How is everyone feeling this morning? It's a bright, sunny Bangkok morning, and it's great that you can join us at this UN Conference Center. And we would like to welcome all of you to the 5th edition of the Sea of Solutions, where we will explore and strengthen collaborative solutions in accelerating the transition to a circular plastic economy, keeping plastics in the economy and out of the environment. And today, we have over 700 approved attendees who are on site and online from over 40 countries, all gathered to discuss how we could end this persistent problem of plastic pollution. I'm Rico Hizon, your moderator for this morning. And at this year's Sea of Solutions, we have a total of 7 plenary sessions and 8 knowledge sessions, which will all look into the multifaceted nature of the plastic pollution challenges and proven solutions within our reach. So please stay tuned, sit back, and let us hear from our distinguished speakers this morning. To welcome us in this gathering and to this beautiful city of Bangkok, we have Dr. Wijarn Simachaya, President of the Thailand Environment Institute, for his welcome remarks.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Ms. Lin Yang, Deputy Executive Secretary for Program Environment, Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Ms. Marlene Nilsson, Deputy Regional Director for Asia and the Pacific, United Nations Environmental Program. Honorable participants, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to welcome you all to the Sea Solution 2024, delivering action to end plastic pollution. As the President of Thailand Environment Institute, or TI, and the Chairman of Thailand PPP Plastic, the Public-Private Partnership for Sustainable Waste and Plastic Management, it is a privilege to address you today at this pivotal event today in the United Nations in Thailand. The detrimental impact of irresponsible plastic consumption and production on our social economy and environment are well documented. We have made significant strides in setting framework and policy, as well as taking on-the-ground action to multi-sectoral cooperation at global, regional, national, and community levels. However, the persistent and transboundary nature of plastic pollution underscores the need for even stronger cooperation and action at the global level. The 2022 UN resolution on ending plastic pollution endorsed by 193 member states to the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee, or INC, represent a key initiative toward an international agreement to tackle plastic pollution. Regionally, ASEAN has also developed effective strategies that reflect both regional and identities. the Bangkok Declaration on Combating Marine Plastic debris that was initiated by Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment Thailand, and also endorsed by the ASEAN Summit 2019, reaffirmed the commitment of ASEAN member states to protect the marine environment and enhance regional cooperation. This commitment is further embodied in ASEAN Regional Action Plan for combating marine debris in ASEAN member states for the year 2021 to the year 2025, which follows the Bangkok Declaration. Initiated in 2019, Sea Circular by United Nations Environmental Program, or UNEP, and the coordinating body of the Sea of East Asia, COPSEA, aim to promote regional collaboration and enabling policy to address marine plastic pollution and its action at the source. Sea of Solution, as part of Sea Circular, serve as a platform to foster a partnership and showcase best practice and advanced technological innovation solution to tackle marine plastic debris. A Sea of Solution 2024 provides an invaluable opportunity for representatives from leading sustainable development organizations in the Asia and Pacific region to share best practice, lessons learned, and technology innovation towards ending plastic pollution. I encourage everyone here, government agency, business and industrial sectors, civil society organization, research, academic institute, investor and funder, and international organization, and our youth also with us today to use this platform to discuss solution, strengthen partnership, and accelerate progress toward a circular economy for plastic. Let us integrate the knowledge gained here to support policy and regulatory development, build infrastructure and system for plastic circularity, promote awareness and education, and mobilize resources for actionable implementation. Let us continue momentum, collaborate effectively, and address marine plastic debris pollution at its sources. As we prepare for upcoming fifth INC session in Busan, Republic of Korea, in just 10 weeks ahead. Let's seize this opportunity to gain insight and force ahead new partnership. Once again, welcome to Bangkok for Sea Solution 2024. I wish you all a successful and productive event, as well as a wonderful stay in Bangkok, Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wijarn Simachaya, President of the Thailand Environment Institute, for your very inspiring words and for your immediate call to action to end plastic pollution in your welcome remarks. And we are indeed very honored to have you today. Allow me now to also invite Ms. Marlene Nilsson, UNEP's Deputy Regional Director for Asia and the Pacific, for her welcome message.
Thank you. Dr. Wijarn Simachaya, President of Thailand Environment Institute, my fellow UN colleague, Ms. Lin Yang, Deputy Executive Secretary for Program, United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, also known as UNESCAP. And distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and I see a lot of friends in this room. Good morning and sawadika. On behalf of the United Nations Environment Programme, also known as UNEP, it is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome you to Sea of Solutions 2024. As previously been mentioned, the theme of this edition of Sea of Solution is delivering actions to end plastic pollution. This is the flagship event of Sea Circular, an initiative of UNEP and the coordinating body of the Seas of the East Asia, also known as COP-C. The efforts through Sea Circular to address plastic pollution across Southeast Asia are possible through the generous support of the government of Sweden. Sea Circular's achievements over the past several years would not have been possible without such fruitful collaboration with Sweden and the unwavering commitment of governments, the private sector, and many more partners. As we gather here today in beautiful Bangkok and online to explore solutions to plastic pollution, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who have contributed to Sea Circular. Thank you. All. We are facing a global plastic pollution crisis. And while plastic is a valuable material with many uses, it should be kept out of the environment. 2/3 of the 430 million tons of plastic produced annually are short-lived products that soon become waste. Much of this waste ends up as pollution. This pollution makes its way into rivers and to the oceans, harming nature. We have seen too many heartbreaking images of the impacts of plastic pollution on marine life, here in Thailand and in the Asia-Pacific region and around the world. And I think you know what I'm referring to, the turtle with the straw in its nose and the fish or the monitor lizard that is trapped in a plastic bag. Plastic pollution has also been shown to create breeding grounds for mosquitoes and vectors for transmittable diseases, and we're still learning how plastic pollution impacts our own health. Reducing and eventually ending plastic pollution will require addressing the full life cycle of plastics. This means changing the design of products so they are designed for circularity. It means reducing our dependency on single-use and short-lived plastic products. It means using, reusing, and recycling resources more efficiently and effectively. It means ensuring a just transition for the millions of informal waste workers around the world. A shift to a circular economy can bring stunning benefits, drastically reducing the plastic waste entering into the oceans and saving governments $70 billion by 2040. It can also create hundreds of thousands of jobs while cutting greenhouse gas emissions. Countries are continuing their work towards an agreement on ending plastic pollution. As our previous speaker mentioned, in just 2 months' time, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee to develop an internationally legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, including in the marine environment, will hold its 5th session in Busan, Republic of Korea, later this, and again, just 2 months. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share what lies ahead of Sea of Solutions 2024. Sea of Solutions is a platform for action that convenes leaders from every corner of the plastic value chain to drive meaningful change. This year's will feature 7 plenary sessions and 8 knowledge sessions. These sessions will focus on topics that are critical to driving concrete and sustainable action to reduce plastic waste, from financing to behavioral change to circularity. Every stakeholder, whether from government, business, civil society, or a consumer, has a role to play in shifting how we produce, use, and dispose of plastic. In implementing data-driven and evidence-based policies, is key to these efforts, as is meaningful engagement with communities. Solutions to plastic pollution already exist within the region, and I would like to recognize the leadership of ASEAN for its commitment to addressing these challenges. Countries in Asia have been trailblazers in piloting circular economy models that can serve as examples for others. Without commitment, we will never start. But without consistency, we will never finish. So let's seize this moment. Over the next 2 days, I encourage you to fully engage, learn from each other, and share your ideas. Together, we can make a tangible difference in turning the tide on plastic pollution. And once again, I warmly welcome you to Sea of Solution 2024. Let's work together to end plastic pollution and create a better future for all. Sawadee-ka.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marlene Nilsson, for your inspiring words. And now we would like to invite for her opening remarks, Ms. Lin Yang, Deputy Executive Secretary for Program of the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific.
Dr. Wijarn, Simachaya, President, Thailand Environment Institute. My fellow colleague, Ms. Marlene Nilsson, Deputy Director, UNEP Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Distinguished delegates and participants, good morning. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our moderator for his very passionate introduction at the very beginning, and for those very insightful words by Dr. Wijarn and Ms. Nilsson. I see this as a strong manifestation of our collective commitment and the dedication to the issue of Sea of Solutions. So it's a great honor for me to attend today's event on behalf of Ms. Amida Celsia Alicia Bana, Under Secretary General of the United Nations and the Executive Secretary of ASCAP. And now I deliver her message. The Asia-Pacific region produces almost half of the global volume of plastic and consumes approximately 40% of the total. Inadequate and overwhelmed waste management system, open dumping, storms, and rain cause land-based sources of pollution to leak into rivers and the coastal and marine environment. 8 rivers in Asia are also responsible for a high percentage of debris that reaches the ocean through their basins. Additional stressors, such as abandoned, lost, and discarded fishing gear, continue to threaten marine life and the key industries in our region, including tourism. The adoption of Resolution 5/14 at the 5th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly in 2022 demonstrated the determination of member states to end the plastic pollution crisis. We are confident that the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee on Plastic Pollution will continue to make progress on the draft text and hopefully will finalize the draft legal instrument by the end of this year. ASCAP is mandated by its member states to strengthen regional cooperation on regional ocean governance, ocean data and the statistics, the sustainable use of the ocean, the protection of marine ecosystems, and the ocean-based climate action in Asia and the Pacific. Our latest SDG progress report for the region shows that it's facing challenges in achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 14 by 2030. To address this challenge, in collaboration with the Asia and the Pacific Office of UNEP and the Bangkok Regional Hub of UNDP, we develop a regional decade program to support the implementation of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development in Asia and the Pacific, which spans 2021 to 2030. Since 2018, we have convened the region every year under the program to strengthen regional cooperation and the dialogue on oceans. Cities are an important focus for our work in this region. Supported by the government of Japan, we have strengthened the capacities of cities in the region to reduce the leakage of waste into the marine environment. Activities included measuring and monitoring waste flows, deploying artificial intelligence, satellite and drone imaging, citizen science and modeling. Local action plans have been strengthened as a result. One of the most important lessons is that the transition towards a greener and a bluer circular economy is an essential part of the enabling environment for change. This is an important week as we host in Bangkok not only the Sea of Solutions, but also the regional dialogue on ocean-based climate action and the regional workshop on the agreement under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea on the conservation and sustainable use of a marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction, the BBNJ agreement. We also look forward to the upcoming regional preparatory meeting for the UN Ocean Conference and the regional review of the Goal 14 next year at the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. We look forward to working with you all to build bridges between stakeholders and the government through inclusive dialogue platforms, encouraging the private sector, civil society, and the scientific community, academia, and the youth. This is essential for the success of the important multilateral processes underway to support the health of ocean environment. We look forward to the recommendations and the solutions to eliminate plastic pollution in the region that will be generated by this event over the coming days. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lin Yang, and thank you to our speakers and for their immediate call to action to end plastic pollution. So ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 full days ahead of us. I hope you are as excited as we are to connect, reconnect, exchange best practices, discover innovations, and forge stronger partnerships to put an end to plastic pollution. And to officially close this session, let us all please watch this message from Ms. Sheila Agarwal Khan, Director of UNEP's Industry and Economy Division, to share with us a little reminder on why we are all gathered here today.
430 million tons of plastics are produced annually, of which a third is single-use. And much of this makes its way into the environment and even into our human bodies. Governments recognized this 2 years ago when they decided to have a negotiation for a global plastics instrument to find solutions that would stop plastic pollution. Sea Circular developed a number of solutions working with governments to identify ways in which to curb plastic pollution.
We truly have a sea of solutions at our disposal.
For example, in Indonesia, the country put in place an extended producer responsibility scheme and now a platform in which government and industry engage to find a way in which industry can transition to reducing its plastic pollution. In Vietnam, a tax was put on plastic bags and packaging, including single-use polystyrene food containers. And in Thailand, new requirements for plastic food contact material were put in place, removing dyes, additives, so that plastic material would be safe for human consumption, but also safe for recycling. C Circular produced many of these solutions, innovating with many different stakeholders, and now we see these solutions on product design, extended producer responsibility, alternatives and substitutes, and markets that are flourishing without plastic pollution. I welcome you to this 2024 Sea of Solutions Conference.
Thank you very much to Ms. Sheila Agarwal Khan. And we will now shortly begin the first plenary session. But before that, we would like to invite our esteemed speakers to please join us at the open center space for a photo opportunity. Let's give them a big round of applause. Dr. Wijarn Simachaya, Ms. Marlene Nilsson, and Ms. Lin Yan. No, they're not. This. Thank you very much to our esteemed speakers. And now, we will now segue to our first plenary session this morning, and we will be focusing on transforming plastic value chains. And our inspirational speaker has flown all the way from Copenhagen, Denmark, to deliver a talk about transforming plastic value chains. She is an environmental economist dedicated to driving positive global change through the circular economy. As founder and chief executive officer of Circular Innovation Lab, she is responsible for institutional engagement, overseeing the organization's policy arm. Additionally, she serves as the coordinating lead author for the Circularity chapter of the 7th edition of the Global Environment Outlook, or GO7, UNEP's flagship independent expert-led environmental assessment. Delegates, friends, let us all please welcome on the floor Ms. Apurva Arya for her message on the critical need for transforming plastic value chains. Let's give her a big round of applause, please.
Thank you, Rico, for such a kind introduction. Before I begin, I'd like to play a short video for everyone.
What if we tell you that there's a way to build a sustainable future for all, creating prosperity across society, the economy, and the environment? Introducing the circular economy. A circular economy is an approach towards transformative change, away from the current linear take, make, dispose economic model towards a circular model that designs out waste and pollution, keeps products and materials in use, and regenerates nature. One of the key principles of the circular economy is upstream design and innovation that involves rethinking the way products and services are delivered to users and are structured, avoiding waste generation at the very outset. Let's look at the textile sector for a moment. 92 million tons of textiles waste is produced every year, and around $500 billion value is lost each year because of poorly designed products, overproduction, and consequently failure to recycle clothes. The fashion industry is responsible for 20% of global water pollution. If we look at a circular economy in textiles, for instance, we must observe the technical cycle and optimize the usage of materials, making sure that all resources at some point can and will be recycled back into the supply chain. For example, garments can be designed for longevity, to be worn for a very long time, and even to be resold, provided the quality is good enough. Even at the end of their life cycle, by following upstream innovation and design principles, we can recycle all or most of the textiles, turning worn-out textiles into yarn again and using it for new garments. In the biological cycle, processes can be designed by mimicking nature, where everything that is extracted from the soil is naturally returned back to it. For example, food and agriculture systems can adopt regenerative practices such as composting and permaculture. Cotton can be produced similarly. Sustainable production and consumption are key to a circular economy. This involves business models such as product as a service, repair, take back and refund concepts, which promotes the efficient use of resources and rethinks ownership. For example, a manufacturer could retain ownership over his washing machines by renting them out, staying responsible for repairing and refurbishing the machines. Thinking in closed loops in a circular economy allows for maximizing the value of existing resources while minimizing pressure on the environment. In that way, a generalized circular economy would help shape a nature-positive future while creating benefits for communities and businesses. Circular Innovation Lab is a think tank based out of Copenhagen on a mission to accelerate the global transition to a circular economy. We collaborate with national governments and international organizations to create circular economy solutions that drive the transition to a circular economy forward. Join us on our mission to create a circular future that tackles global challenges like climate change, biodiversity loss, waste, and pollution.
Kenneth Boulding famously quipped, "Anyone who believes that exponential growth can go on forever in a finite world is either a madman or an economist." Distinguished guests, esteemed experts, and fellow advocates for a circular future, it is an honor to address you today at the Sea of Solutions 2024. Let me just begin by saying that plastics are fantastic. They are not the problem. We are. It is unquestionable that plastics have brought us many benefits. They insulate our homes, make our cars lighter, and protect our food. Product after product, market after market, plastics challenged traditional materials and won, taking the place of steel in cars, paper and glass in packaging, and wood in furniture. Because of their combination of low cost and unparalleled properties, plastics are the workhouse material of the modern economy. Today, nearly everyone, everywhere, every day comes in contact with plastic, especially plastic packaging. But it's important to distinguish that plastics are not bad, but our systems are. We have not managed the greatest innovation of the 20th century world and turned it into a disaster by turning the value chain ironically linear. According to the OECD's Global Plastic Outlook, the current amount of plastic waste leaked into the environment amounts to 22 megaton per year, which is expected to double to 44 megaton by 2060 if no policy action is taken. Let us just think about what happens to the plastic cup of coffee when we're done with it, and how much does it cost? How does it affect the environment, the land, the ocean, and biodiversity? The cost of plastics to the environment and society is at least 10 times higher than its market price. That coffee cup doesn't biodegrade. Instead, it breaks down into microplastics and nanoplastics and infiltrates every level of the food chain. These tiny particles carry toxic chemicals, disrupting marine ecosystems, and end up on our plate. Constant exposure to these microplastics is associated with various health complications, including cancer and development delays in children. This underscores the fact that plastic pollution is an environmental crisis and a human rights issue. The adverse effects of plastic pollution weigh disproportionately on vulnerable communities in emerging economies, where inadequate plastic waste management systems contribute to environmental degradation, health hazards, and social injustices. Plastic pollution is not only lethal for humans, but for many species. Plastic pollution in all forms causes lethal and sublethal effects in a wide array of organisms in marine, freshwater, and terrestrial environments. Plastics can also alter global carbon cycles through their effect on plankton and primary production in marine, freshwater, and terrestrial systems. A 1% decline in annual marine ecosystem services could equate to an annual loss of $500 billion in global ecosystem benefits. Throughout its life, plastic also contributes to climate change. In 2020, plastic generated 3.6% of global greenhouse gas emissions, 1.8 billion tons of CO2 equivalent, with 90% of quantifiable emissions coming from plastics production and conversion from fossil fuels, and the remaining 10% of quantifiable emissions released during waste management and treatment. Research has estimated that the lifetime cost to society, the environment, and the economy of plastic produced in 2019 alone was $3.7 trillion US, much more than the GDP of several countries. And unless action is taken, this cost will only increase. Our collective failure to incorporate these negative externalities of plastic has led to the greatest crisis of the 21st century. To move from insight to large-scale action, it is clear that no one actor can work on this alone. We need policymakers, businesses, civil societies, consumers, all need to mobilize in order to capture the opportunity of the new circular plastics economy. To create a circular economy for plastic, we must take pre-action. We need to eliminate all problematic and unnecessary plastic items. We have to innovate to ensure that plastics we do not need are reusable, recyclable, or compostable. And finally, circulate all the plastic items we use to keep them in the economy and out of the environment. This would, of course, require us to reinvent how we design, produce, and sell plastic products. We need to rethink how we use and consume plastic. And finally, we need to redefine what is possible through reuse and recycling. Now, let me touch upon 3 key transition strategies that could spark a major wave in innovation with benefits for the entire supply chain, but especially packaging. First and foremost, we need to fundamentally redesign and innovate the plastic products that we put out in the market. We need to design out waste at the outset. About 30% of plastic packaging will never be reused or recycled because they are designed in a way that they are destined for landfill, incineration, or energy recovery, and often likely to leak into the environment. Hence, we need to fundamentally redesign and innovate. Of course, for some segments, this means reinvention from scratch. For other categories, it means scaling existing solutions and accelerating progress made so far. At least 20% of plastic packaging could be an effective case for reuse as its economically attractive opportunity. For instance, new models that effectively replace single-use packaging with reusable alternatives are already being demonstrated in the cleaning and personal care market by only shipping active ingredients in combination with reusable dispensers. Finally, with concerted efforts on design and after-use systems, recycling would be economically attractive for the remaining 50% of plastic packaging. Most plastic waste is either landfilled or ends up in the oceans, and if collected, is recycled with huge negative externalities, no set standards, and with poor economics and quality. This leads to questionable quality of recycled plastics for reuse, barring a few exceptions. Furthermore, the rise in plastic packaging waste is much faster than recycle industry's ability to cope with either new technology or capacity. The consumers who diligently sort recyclables from trash have little way of knowing that the former do not end up in landfills despite their effort, because it is impossible in most cases for consumers to track waste once it leaves their curb. The lack of accountability and visibility with waste management network further disincentivizes recycling and complicates environmentally responsible waste management. Many of the necessary global actions to tackle the plastic crisis are known, but current initiatives lack the necessary scale to drive systemic change. While regulatory approaches have been heterogeneous and scattered, failing to target the fundamental problem drivers. The transboundary nature of plastics requires a truly global response to effectively tackle the crisis. However, there is currently a notable lack of global coordination in plastic action. The question remains, will we act? We must move beyond single changes and choose a systemic transformation of the value chain. I implore you all to take urgent action now, because it takes concerted efforts at all levels to bring a transformative change. Because it's not about the convenient cup of coffee, but the health and well-being of the planet. I urge each one of us to consider our role in this transformation. What choices do we make? What actions do we take? The future of our planet depends on our collective commitment for building a circular economy for plastic, an economy that protects our oceans, our health, and the well-being of generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Apurva, for that very inspirational talk on what we need to do, the call to action from the various stakeholders to end plastic pollution. And now we will have a short conversation, and we have, of course, some questions for Apurva. If any of the delegates here would like to ask any questions, please raise your hand, and we have about 10 minutes for this open forum with Apurva. So thank you so much. I mean, so many problems are being faced right now with plastic pollutions and the issues that impacts our planet. But of course, could you also re-emphasize for us, Apurva, what roles does upstream design play in transforming the plastic value chain?
Absolutely, Nico, absolutely. When we talk about designing out waste, I think one of the fundamental things is design. It is also material selection. Because when we go into this idea of thinking about the entire life cycle of the product, and that's why we choose the materials we choose, that's why we choose the systems that we're living in. So local context is super critical as well. We need to have the infrastructure to support the products that we put out in the market, especially when we're talking plastics. For instance, if it's a mixed material, it's a mix of LDP, HDP, so on, it's really hard to recycle. If we need to recycle this, it will either get downcycled and we will not be able to extract all the value that we can from the material. And then again, when we talk about a circular economy, we need to keep our resources at the highest optimal level at all times. And at the very onset, if design plays that role, if we are ready to not design plastics to end up in landfills or incinerated, we're really solved a lot of the problems, because we are already struggling with the issue of legacy waste, so to say right now.
And of course, Apurva, when we talk about upstreaming design, that's in general terms. Can you cite to us several case studies of companies, maybe regions or countries that have adopted upstream designs?
So let me just share an example of an innovative seaweed packaging that replaced the single-use salt or sugar sachets. And this seaweed packaging was done by an entrepreneur in Indonesia, where it's dissolvable packaging. So we've effectively replaced that single-use plastic that we would just throw in the bin, and it would probably end up leaking into the natural environment. And another example is, because one of the speakers mentioned the example of a seahorse with one of those cotton buds, right? And that's one of the pictures that really got viral. That really led to an innovation of the silicon-based, it's called the last swab. It's made out of silicon. It effectively replaces, we don't have to keep on buying these little things that we buy. The dental floss that we buy, we just trash them. We use them once, and then we just trash them, right? And there's a water flosser out here that we can just replace it with. So I think one of the key things to also remember is that we have solutions right in front of us. We don't need a lot of technology or a lot of innovation also, so to say. A lot of the traditional and indigenous knowledge, the way we lived, especially in Southeast Asia, it was already very circular. Sometimes I think in these solutions, we really need to go back and see what we were doing before and just stick to it.
What other best practices can we learn maybe from the Western countries that we can adopt here in Asia in terms of upstream design and ending plastic pollution?
Rico, I have a really interesting example because I mentioned the local context and the infrastructure needs to support the economy, right? I live in Copenhagen and we sort our waste 7 or 8 ways. But I want to really touch upon this case of the deposit return system. And what it does is incentivizes customers to return their packaged bottles into the supermarkets and get money for it. And what happens with that is, once you do that, people don't look at it as waste, right? If you think about it, waste is a human concept. I mean, we've made up that term. It's what value we put into resources, right? And in this deposit return system, I did this research that looked into all the household data, shopping data of Danish consumers, and learned that, and I was measuring sustainability from the view of packaging. So what do Danish customers perceive as sustainable? Is it really sustainable if you think about the life cycle of that product in the Danish context? A lot of consumers had no idea, first off, of what was sustainable or what was not. A lot of them thought glass is more probably more sustainable. The aluminum cans didn't seem as sustainable to them, but surprisingly enough, a 50 centiliter aluminum can was 100% circular in this context, not the 33 centiliter one, but the 50 centiliter one. So it was 1:1 ratio. You could produce one by recovering one. And that is what we mean by closed loop solutions. It's like if you could replace a product, an entire product, by recovering it and making the same product of the same value or higher value, that's when we're really achieving material circularity.
And education and information dissemination is indeed very, very important in getting the messaging out to the public. Do we have any delegates here who would like to cite some examples from their respective companies or countries or cities that have gone into upstream design and how it has transformed their plastic value chains? Yes, sir. Can you please identify yourself? I can come over to you for a question.
Yes. This is Jet Chang coming from a Norwegian company, Tomra. So I'm very glad you actually mentioned the deposit return system, which is very often used in the single-use beverage containers collection. From our company, actually, we made one step further. We are making the deposit-based reusable cups. It's actually in Denmark now, in Aarhus, second largest city in our country. So reuse, of course, we are highly, have a high hope on that it will continue to cut down the plastic, and especially the single use. So using the reusable containers to replace the single use, that's actually one of the most effective ways. So you can call it a design. But I think the most important thing, as you also correctly mentioned, that infrastructure is very important. Right? We see in this region of the world, the infrastructure is not there yet. So in general, we believe kind of extended producer responsibility scheme or deposit return system is part of that. So question is, how do you see the EPR going on in this part of the country? And do you think like a mandatory EPR is the most important thing with the most likely, also mandatory recycled content, things like that? What's your comments on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Apurva?
Thank you so much for that question. That's a really great question, actually. If we think about EPR, I think one of the key things is how do you incentivize manufacturers to really innovate in that sense that we talked about? How do you get them to choose materials that don't end up in landfills to begin with? But it is tricky, right? Mandating something when the industry, we need to take everyone together. We need to make sure we have the infrastructure in place. We need to make sure that we have the brands in place. We need to make sure that we have a solid regulatory and policy framework that comes with it. If we talk about recycled content, we also need to make sure that countries are going to have these targets. And we need this. We really need this. I really see, I have really high hopes. I shouldn't say hopes. I think we should get there. We should get to an instrument that really helps in bringing global commitment to making sure a lot of the commitments are in place. But having said that, a lot of solutions. We did a project in Bangkok with one of the huge European MNC that looked into how do you transform your supply chain. And it turned out that some of the solutions that they were looking into was chemical recycling of plastics. But the country was not ready for it, right? The project got tanked. So this is why I say it with a grain of salt. We really need to make sure that all stakeholders, when I mentioned in my speech, I said we all need to work together. We need concerted efforts to really do this, because we know what needs to be done, right? We really have to implemented now.
But also a key component, Apurva, in the stakeholder chain are the consumers, right? The consumers. How can they help drive the shift to a circular plastics economy? Everyone here is a consumer.
You know, I come from the Ellen MacArthur School of Thought, so we should stick to saying customers, not consumers, because we're not really consuming, right? We're customers. But I think they play a critical role. We're living in an economy where everything is still run by demand and supply. They are the ones that can really influence businesses. Businesses are looking at customer segments, demographic trends, what's happening, how is the market changing. They don't want to lose customers. But I think we cannot relay the burden on consumers, so to say, as well. We really need an effective way to communicate to consumers on how to make the most circular choice. When we talk about plastics in plastic packaging, we really need to communicate this well. I mean, we've been looking at the resin identification code. Nobody knows what that means. None of the customers. We've been 40 years into having the first recycling symbol. I think that needs to change. We really need to make sure that we communicate the right information to consumers so that they have the ownership of making the right choices, to really picking the more circular good. And once we do that, we will achieve the economies of scale for circular products that we really need. I think things don't work right now. It's because it's just so cheap. You have fossil fuel subsidies, you have the true cost of plastic not integrated into our economic system. And that's also one of the reasons why the alternatives like the seaweed packaging, they've not achieved the kind of scale that we need them to achieve.
All right. We have time for one more question. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you can just use my mic for now.
Hello, good morning. I'm from Gaia Asia Pacific, and we are looking into the global plastics treaty space. One of the things, and we like some of the statements, but some are, we think that we need to have more alignment. For example, when you mentioned upstream design, that's very welcome, and we adhere to that. But some of the upstream designs, including material changes in the plastics, they are sometimes problematic. For example, bioplastics. Also, what we mentioned with recycling, you mentioned chemical recycling as recycling. That's very problematic, and we have scientific papers, experiences of affected communities living in alongside these plants. This is how we're here to understand more about what could we do more to, I think you mentioned recycling is not enough somehow, but we want to hear more about how companies are reducing, and is that possible in your dialogue, reducing plastic production in the first place? And while redesign is very important as well, we hope that redesign will be more on the delivery options like refill and reuse, and we have a lot of already startup companies already doing that, as you've mentioned.
Thank you for that question. Apurva?
Thank you so much. I think maybe I can begin by saying that before even redesign, we really need to rethink, right? We really need to rethink what we want to redesign. And then moving on to the part when you mentioned about what are companies doing to reduce it and how should we innovate, there are new circular economy business models that can help brands. You talked about the refuel scheme, right? If you're able to, say, make the same profits by extending the use of a plastic product, and that requires you to make sure that you put in that product, you design that product to be able to make those profits, then it's already a win-win situation, right? They will automatically reduce their manufacturing if they're able to make the same profits. But then the question remains around, what are we redesigning? What business models are we really incorporating to make sure that the same products that we put out in the market are going to give me the same economic profits as a business owner, right? I hope that answers the question.
Still a lot of challenges that we face when it comes
Absolutely.
to ending plastic pollution. And we all know it will not take a year, it will not take years, it will maybe take decades. But taking a look at your crystal ball, because of course our esteemed speakers also talked about that term, ending plastic pollution, Apurva. That's a very monumental statement. Looking at your crystal ball, when do you think will this happen? When are we going to totally end plastic pollution?
Wow,
How long will it take?
That is a tough one. That is a tough one. I'm an economist, sure, but I would not make these educated guesses at this forum. We're going to have a side conversation about this, Rico. But I think, like I said, I would really implore everyone to...
We have to start, we should have started yesterday.
Exactly. I think it's been more than a decade that I was talking about the same thing, and I just realized when I was preparing this keynote that that we haven't really moved the dial at all, which is a shame. But we still have now, and we still have all of us here in this room equally passionate about ending plastic pollution, and that makes me happy.
All right, that's the challenge for all delegates here who are represented in more than 40 countries around the world. Let's give a big round of applause, please, to Apurva, Arya. And I really do hope that this session has given you a great introduction to the different plenary and session topics that we have in store for you over the next 2 days. Thank you so much for joining us at the opening and the first plenary sessions. We will take this very short break, and we will be right back here at the conference room 3 at 10:30. We will take the short coffee break, so please come right back in about 20 minutes time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.